What is up? What is up, my Pro Design Builder family? I can't wait to bring you this live stream. What is up, my Pro Design Builder family? Can't wait to bring you this live stream. For some reason, sometimes I pick topics chronologically, and then sometimes I pick topics that I feel will fit the best time of what's going on, right? So today, I picked the topic, why coaching is important to achieving big goals, right? So first thing I wanted to say is nothing happens unless you set a big goal, right? And I'll jump into that a little later on what a big goal looks like. But a bunch of things come to mind. All right. So, by the way, this group is specifically for real estate investors that are struggling with the knowledge and experience to become real estate developers, right? So I specifically coach real estate investors on how to launch their first 1 to 4 units and get it off the ground. I understand this process well because I went through this process myself, right? And a lot of years passed by, a lot of bumps in the road, right? And there's a lot of reasons why you don't have to take the same bumps in the road. This is why I launched my specific group. So my story started with me back in the day. My wife got into med school, and she didn't want to go. She just wrote me a letter one day and said, "Nope, I don't want to go. I don't foresee us having the family life that we envisioned." You know, little did I know it was probably one of the best moves that ever happened to me. I think I've kind of spoken about this a little bit, but I'm a foster dad. I'm an adoptive dad. I've adopted twins. I'm currently fostering now. I'll probably always continue to foster. That's my mission work. Not shy about it. But she always she also knew that about me, that segment of my life is very important. And if she was in the islands and then traveling and all this other stuff that comes with it, with residency, and she didn't foresee us having this family life, right? Which is ultimately important. So, but you know, one thing that she did do is she handed me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then that kind of started a cascade of different events that kind of led me to the point of being a design build general contractor and also getting projects off the ground myself. So I would hate to bore you. I also did put a recent podcast that I did with my buddy Ian that tells you more about my story. So I don't waste a bunch of time diving back into that story. But I landed on the topic why coaching is so important, and one of the things that triggered me. I'm an avid reader, right? Since COVID, I've consumed over 100 books, but when COVID hit was the first time that I picked up a book, and then I started with the book Start With Why, and after that book, after I finished it, I felt like I grew. And I like that feeling, right? I think maybe because the last few years I've been kind of dormant and I haven't been growing. But so when you start consuming the amount of books that I'm consuming, you know, per year, you stumble on the right types of books at the time that you're supposed to. And one of my favorite books and impactful books that I read is the book 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan. If you don't know who that is, Dan Sullivan is a world-renowned business coach. His philosophy, his thought process, everything that he comes up with is to bring the best out of high achievers. And as a matter of fact, if you ever think that you are going to make the transition into real estate development, you have to be a high achiever, right? There's a lot of hurdles that come with taking on this sort of pursuit. They're just not handing you six-figure checks just because they want to, right? You have to really go, so to speak, get it out of the mud, right? So there are some key takeaways that I got from this book, and it kind of ties into why coaching is so important, right? So I wanted to highlight a bunch of the key takeaways that I got from this book after I went back over it. That's one thing that I do often. If I feel like that there's a significant amount of nuggets that need to be dropped, and according to something, I'll pick up a book and then I'll flush out all of the thoughts attached to it, right? So I want you to kind of listen to this, right? So it says, he said 10x is easier than going 2x, right? 2x is a incremental shift, right? But high achievers set their goals 10x, right? Because there's a bunch of reasons why that's important. So let's go. All right. So 10x, eliminate all if you ever want to go 10x, eliminate all distractions that doesn't allow you to be 10x, right? So they talk about the 80-20 rule, right? There's 80% of your time is spent in non-productive items and work, and then 20% is productive. What they said is spend 100% of your time in the 20, and that's the 20% rule. And in the 80, you have to pass it off to somebody else, and you have to always operate in your 10x if you ever want to see high achieving goals, right? And anytime that I've set my lens on the 10x for a sustained amount of time, significant amount of things happen. Like even when I was kind of consuming this book and listening to it, it had me thinking about my current business and what I'm looking to do and how I'm looking to expand it, and the pieces and the people that I need to help me expand my vision. And I started to get excited, as I was driving and also listening to this book and kind of formulating a lot of my thoughts. But it says nothing happens until after you commit to the point of no return, right? And I think that's a hang up that happens with a lot of people, right? They want to prepare, they want to have the confidence to move forward, but they feel like they have to know the information to actually move forward instead of locking in on your 10x that will move the needle. It's about the who, not how, right? And a lot of people get stuck on the how, and I've been there a few different times in different businesses, get stuck on the how and not focusing on the who that's going to excel my vision exponentially, right? So when we're talking about building a team, it's important to have the right seats on the bus, but what more importantly, it's important to have the right coach pushing you to your vision, right? So this is, if you want to become a developer, you want to become a vision builder, right? That's just the bottom line, right? So the Bible says without vision, the people perish, right? So anytime I am on a quest, I'm looking for scripture that verifies or solidifies exactly the position that I want to head, right? And in that one, without vision, the people fail, and it's so true, right? And one of the things that has to happen is you have to give yourself permission to go 10x, right? So, like I said, I'm dropping absolute bombs on you, but these are nuggets that I take from the book, and these help formulate my thoughts when it comes to the way that I coach, pushing the next vision, right? And that's what it's going to require for you to grow if you ever want to be a real estate developer. If you ever want to get your first 1 to 4 units off the ground, it's gonna force you out of your comfort zone, and you have to give yourself permission that 10x is okay with you, right? Even if you can't think it right now, right? This is how high achievers think and execute on a vision, right? So here's what it says. It says, don't demand yourself see the result prior to setting the goal or resetting the goal. All right. So sometimes what happens is I set the goal and I want to see it happen before I take the chance and move the needle further. Right. You don't have to see it to expand your vision and expand your knowledge. And guess what's going to happen? you're going to hit it every single time once you operate through these type of principles. All right. Oh, this is another one. This is another one that's very good, right? So when I went on my quest into design build, I started getting around people that were already where I wanted to be and where I wanted to grow to, the size company that I already wanted to grow to. And something happens when you get into the room with people that are high achievers, right? High achievers bring out high achieving activity from each other, right? That's just kind of how it works, right? That's why masterminds are so good, and that's why mentors are so important. You kind of draw from the sauce that they're cooking and has allowed them to grow into a position that you want to get to. So that's going to be very important too. So yeah, getting in the room is going to be extremely important, right? So focus on your unique ability, whatever that unique ability is that you do better than anybody else, right? Get rid of all of the tasks, right? You might need to hire some sort of virtual assistant. Write down all of your tasks that you do in a day, right? Including your home tasks, including your work tasks, right? Write them all down and then look at it and say what percentage, 80% of this can I give away to somebody else so I can lock in on my 20%, which is going to move the needle, right? And if you're in sales, you know that dialing or getting in front of leads are going to be your number one indicator on if you're successful, right? Same thing. If you're locked into the top 20% of your work and your output, guess what's going to happen? The thing that you want to happen. So it's going to be really important for you to lock in on your unique gifts. Here's the thing too. And Dan Sullivan talks about this in his book, right? You have to want differently, right? You have to want something, right? So needs, visions don't happen because of needs, right? Needs is a scarcity position, right? Wants is exactly where you want to be, right? And you don't need to justify your wants for anybody, right? And if someone says, why do you want that? I want it because I want it. Right? You know, I want it because God gave me the ability to have a vision this big. All right, I want it so I could produce more victories in foster care for the kingdom. I want it to produce it for the legacy of my family. I want it to grow into the highest, best version of myself. I want it because my feet are on the ground and I don't have a guarantee that today is promised to me. And I could promise to you, if you've ever had this experience, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? When I was a kid, I had a life-threatening, life-altering situation where I literally lost my life in my godmother's arms. My body went into shock, right? And since then, I haven't been able to turn off this ticking sound that goes off in my head each and every day that tells me that life's not guaranteed, right? So every day is truly a gift, and I cannot say that more. Each day that passes by, I say that because it gives me great joy and that I'm grateful to be here, right? So those are some of the reasons that I don't owe anybody on why I should be, why I want the things that I want, right? And also, too, he had said, and this is probably one of the hardest things for people to overcome, is you want, because staying in this want zone, and people were like, well, what if you want for bad? What if I want a Lamborghini for bad? Well, you want for good, right? Do you want to do bad stuff? That's not the type of people I want to work with. If you want just to want for selfish reasons, not to grow, not to do something for others or not to do something for your family, you're probably not in the right circle, right? So that was another thing that he had touched on is if you want just for the sake of chasing money, that doesn't create wealth, right? And he's around a lot of high achievers, uh, tens of thousands of high achievers over the last 40 years. And if he's giving you that warning sign, that should be an alarm bell to you that chasing money really doesn't work, right? So my particular coaching style is for that person that wants to get to the next level, that wants to achieve more, that wants to set up legacy for their family, that wants the best for themselves, that wants to grow into the best version of themselves, because there's no reason why you should ever limit your growth or limit your expectations, right? So one of the things that I reference quite often is the Bible, and there's something called the law of first mention, right? And in the law of first mention is you look at it, how was it originally designed, right? And I'm going to take you back to the garden, right, where God created Adam. Adam, he created his wife, and he put Adam in abundance, right? What he said was, you could eat from any other tree, right? But the one tree that you cannot eat from is that one, right? He gave him one exception, right? And now if you're paying attention to how many tree species are out there, there's hundreds of thousands of trees, right? Hundreds of thousands of options, hundreds of thousands of berries, hundreds of thousands of fruit, hundreds of thousands of options, right? But just like the story goes, the serpent, he's deceiving, right? No, you could do that. You could be a god, right? Your eyes could open. You could, have access to this and that, right? And that's when the fall happened. So you got to understand that nothing great happens to you from a place of lack, right? So you need to get the need out of your head, right? What do you want, right? Focus on that. What do you want for yourself? What do you want for the next generation? What do you want for your families, right? Especially in times like this, where it's going to require extreme action to achieve the pace that inflation is increasing, or the pace that life is costing right now. And I'm telling you right now, another thing that he mentioned in his book, there's a lot of competing people, of competing people at the bottom, right? There's not a lot of people competing at the top, right? And the people that are competing at the top are achieving exponentially higher goals, exponentially higher returns, because they decided, they made a decision, they made a commitment, and from there they grew into that person they needed to be based on this 10x formula, right? So one of the other books that he wrote is the book Who Not How, and it talks about being in the room with the right and hiring the right who's on your team to execute, right? So if I'm not an IT guy, or if I'm not a marketing guy, I want to try to find one of the best marketing guys that's going to help me grow, my platform, or help me grow my branding or something like that, right? These are just some examples, right? If I'm not, just pick something. If I'm not an attorney, or if I'm not a architect, or if I'm not a general contractor, I want to hire the best professional that can handle these positions on my team. So now I can draw from them, and then I can be the one that's coordinating all of the steps, right? Managing all of the steps, right? So it's about making sure you have the right coach and the right system and the right team to be able to move the needle where you need it as a developer. So eliminate complexity, right? Complexity kills scale. Right, so there's going to be a need for you to gain knowledge in this particular space, right? So that's why one of the things is typically real estate investors have taken a few projects underneath them. They've accustomed to wrangling with contractors, architects, or doing smaller scale projects. So you're accustomed to doing the movements, and you have the knowledge base enough to move into development, right? So the thing about development, there is land acquisition, there is zoning, there is raising capital if you don't have your own, there is a whole bunch of different things that are added on top of the checklist that to execute on a project that you need to learn. All right, but once you've learned and executed on these checklists, then obviously things get a lot easier from there. So complexity scales, right? So if you're accustomed to doing single family, stay in single family. If you're accustomed to doing two units or four plexes, stay in the four plexes, right? So once you've done it enough times, then it's easier to scale that particular model, right? So energy management over time management, right? So one of the things that he talked about, right? And let me just bring this up. And I didn't, all right. Boom. All right. This is one of the big nuggets. It says the 4 freedoms, all right? So is essential to achieving 10x, all right? So these freedoms aren't just business goals. They're personal drivers behind an ambitious entrepreneur, right? So first one is freedom of time, right? So I already told you what time means to me, and also with the understanding that I don't have guaranteed time. So the more that you free up your time, it allows you to stay in your genius and stay in your focus, that 20%, right? So you need to offload a lot of the busy tasks to others. So that's the first freedom. So freedom of time, right? And then there's freedom of money, all right? Making enough financial resources to make choices without constraint, right? Which is a great place to be. And this is what high achievers do. You need to free up your time. You need to establish yourself in a way that your company is self-managing, right? So once you've achieved freedom of time and freedom of money, freedom of relationships, right? Once you get into bigger rooms, you'll realize that the rooms that you are in are going to be important in your growth, in your accountability, in your in the direction that you head, right? So the more that you have freedom in relationships, your world blossom. We were built to connect. That's how God made us, right? So freedom of relationship, and then once you get to those 3, then you could have truly freedom of purpose, which is living in alignment with the deeper calling or mission from within, right? This gives your 10x journey meaning and fuels long-term motivation and fulfillment, right? So those are the 4 freedoms, right? And you think about it, and you think, because you're not setting up to work forever, right? I'm not setting up to work forever. I have a specific vision in mind. I do like to work. I will always work. Right? I just don't feel like there's a purpose to retire. My vision needs to continue to grow, continue to expand. So freedom and purpose is the optimal place that I want to be. I'm working on a lot of different things when it comes to freeing up and executing on my vision, executing on my purpose, and the stuff that I'm doing in foster care is very important. So part of me, transitioning into coaching and away from more construction sites and partnering with a lot of different developers to kind of help walk them through it is so I can have the freedom of purpose to focus more time on my family, to focus more time on my mission work, to focus more time on the things that are absolutely important to me, right? So when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to be like, I wish I wish I had the freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose all at the same time. So those are the takeaways that we got from the book 10X is Easier Than 2X. And then that reiterates why it's important for you guys to have a coach and the ability to push you to the next level is going to be important on you if you ever want to achieve the big audacious goal of becoming a developer. So if you've got if you gotten nuggets from this particular training, type put the fire emoji in the description. I love bringing you this type of training that's going to help you grow and achieve. I would like for you guys to comment more, communicate more. I want to really grow this into something special. Outside of that, have a great day.